Hello, I'm Sharon Benjamin. Welcome to Leafless, Not Lifeless. Did you know that according to Encyclopedia Britannica, the leaves fall off the trees in the fall, not just because it's autumn, but it's actually a means of protecting them. Evergreen trees have wax and resin on their leaves, so they are protected. However, deciduous trees, the leaves are not protected. They don't have that kind of protection. So you know that when water freezes, it expands. If the leaves did not fall from the trees and the water expanded, it would damage the trees and it would inhibit the process of photosynthesis. So the leaves fall and it's for protection. Now, when the leaves fall, they don't just fall to the ground aimlessly. They actually fall and decay, which means it helps to bring about growth for other trees. So nothing is lost. Nothing is lost. So the leaves would rupture if the ice was still there, as I said, and photosynthesis could not take place. Growth could not take place. Have you ever found yourself in a situation where on the outside, it seemed as if nothing was going on, seemed as if the leaves were gone, but you were actually growing and developing, and not just for yourself, but for others as well. So when it seemed as if there were no leaves there, when there was no life, growth was taking place, you were growing, and it ended up you're doing something to help someone else as well. Well, my guest today is Siyan Bradley, who is such a person. So Siyan, welcome. Thank you so much for joining me. I'm looking forward to your information.
Yeah, thank you for having me. I'm looking forward to the conversation.
Yes, yes. So Siyan is a young man who was dealt a hand that none of us would want. His mom was brutally murdered in a domestic violence situation in 2006, correct?
Yes, 2006.
2006. So after going through years of working with his siblings to handle his mom's affairs, he came to the point where he wanted to start a foundation to bring awareness, provide education, and support around domestic violence. So he's going to share a bit about his experience, how he came to create the foundation and its focus. So again, Siyan, thank you so much for coming to Leafless, Not Lifeless. So let's start out. What was your age when your mom was killed in that brutal situation?
So I was 24 at the time.
24. And how was that for you? What were some of your first thoughts when you got the news about your mom's death?
Yeah, so like I said, I was 24 at the time, still living at home with my mom. I got the news while I was actually on my way down to Hampton, Virginia to visit my then girlfriend, now wife. I was on my way down. My mother had just dropped me off that morning at the train station to go visit her. And I got the news maybe 20 minutes, maybe about an hour into the train ride. And I got the news that I got a phone call from my youngest sister. And on the phone, all I can hear is her say, "She's gone." And the phone hung up. At that moment, I felt life leave me at that moment. I don't know if anybody has ever experienced that, but it was like at that point, I can feel a part of me just die at that moment. So I was sitting on the train, confused, lost, not really knowing, what exactly happened, but I knew she was gone. It was like a split-second phone call, and I knew she was gone, and I felt that to my core. And so the maybe half an hour on the train felt like an eternity. I was kind of lost on this train by myself at the time.
So you knew that your mom had passed, but you didn't know the details at the moment.
Yeah, at that moment, I had no details. I knew, like I said, my youngest sister called. She was with the police at the time, so they didn't allow her to say much. And I picked up the phone and she says, and all I can make out was she's gone. And that's, no more details. So that's pretty much all I knew at the time, is that she was no longer there. And I felt it. It wasn't about hearing it. It wasn't about her saying the words. I felt it in my soul. When I got that phone call, I felt it like, okay, she's no longer with us.
So who identified your mom's body?
So at the time, my younger sister was home. She was 17 at the time. She was home, and my uncle, her one of her younger brothers, was staying with us at the time also, and they both were home when that happened. So
Now, losing a parent under normal, so to speak, circumstances, but in a situation like this has to be just hardly any words to explain it.
yeah, absolutely. You know, you watch these things on TV, or you read about it, or you see it on the news and newspapers. Never once do you stop and think that one day you would end up, or you and your family would end up being front page news. And so it was a very surreal moment. Like, it's like, wow, like we are the news. You know, you see these things happen to other people, and it's like you feel, you know, obviously you feel something for those other people that it happens to, but when it happens to you, it's like, wow, like never in 1,000 years, you know, did you think, especially our mother, you know, she was a single mother our whole lives, and so that's all we knew, and raised us, and you know, you couldn't tell us that we wasn't going to live an eternity with her. And for us to be snatched away like that was like one of these most surreal, unreal moments of my life.
Yeah, so after taking care of your mom's services and her affairs, what were your first order of business for yourself?
Yeah, so that was a journey. That was a journey. I think immediately after taking care of everything, because you know, when that happens, there's this fog of taking care of business and not really grieving. So, you know, one of the first things I did do was take, I think, about 2 weeks away from home. I ended up going back down to Hampton, and I stayed down there at the time for about 2 weeks, just to kind of get my head wrapped around, you know, coming back home and having to deal with all the other affairs. But that was like an immediate. But from the years after, you know, it was a journey of figuring out that I wasn't okay, and that took some time, because I spent a lot of time telling myself that I was okay. Spent a lot of times focusing on other people, and mainly my siblings and my grandmother. Spent a lot of times focusing on them and making sure they was okay, and not a lot of time on me. I convinced myself for a while that I was okay.
Are you
Yeah,
are you the oldest child?
I'm the second oldest. I have an older sister.
But did you feel like you had to take on this yourself?
No, absolutely. That was probably one of the, if not the second thought on my journey back home to the crime scene. During that ride back home, I convinced myself, and by the time I made it back to Harbortown and Perth Amboy, I was fully convinced that it was my job to take care of the family. You know, I convinced myself that I had to put everything that I was feeling inside and going through inside on the back burner and not deal with it, so that I can take care of her and make sure everybody was okay. And so, you know, I put that on. Nobody asked me to do that. Nobody said, Siyan, now it's you're the head of the household, you got to take care of everything. I took on that burden myself. And I lived with that for a few years before, like I was saying, I realized that, you know, it wasn't healthy for me.
So what was your kind of walk us through a bit of your healing process for
Yeah,
yourself?
right. So I would say my true journey to healing started somewhere around 2008. Not somewhere, actually around 2008, with and it initiated with the birth of my first child, Madison. So prior to that, you know, I started to, after the initial, maybe the first year, you know, so somewhere around 2007 going into 2008, I started experiencing this deep feeling of loneliness, of emptiness. You know, at the time, out of my siblings, I was the only sibling without a kid, without a child at the time. Wasn't married at the time. And so, you know, I felt a little jealous of them. I was feeling like, you know, they had something, the kids, to kind of keep them going, and I didn't have anything. And so when I finally, you know, had my first child in October 2008, that was kind of like a aha moment for me. Was like, okay, And so I did a couple things right and I did a couple things wrong when
Okay,
that
tell us about them.
right. So like I said, I always tell people that my Madison, that's my oldest, saved my life. And that was a
What do you
beautiful,
mean by that?
well, because I think if I had not had her, I was, like I said, I was starting to feel this heavy grief and this heavy feeling of loneliness and emptiness. And I think had that trajectory not been changed by the birth of her, I think I would have been in a dark place for quite some time, you know. And that's what I say, that's what I mean by she saved my life. I don't know exactly where I would have ended, but I
Yes.
think, you know, I could feel and I knew I was headed into a dark place, and it would have taken a lot of work to get out of that dark place. And so that was the plus sign of having Madison. The good and the bad of it was that I threw too much of myself into her in the initial years. And everything that it was supposed to be new life and refreshing, started to become more of an anchor, because now I was, using her as an anchor. I wasn't really dealing with what was going on. I was just kind of, I just kind of threw myself into being her dad. And, and as great as that, yeah,
Projecting onto her.
right. And as great as that might sound, it was unfair to her. It was unfair to my wife. It just wasn't healthy. So it took a lot of self-reflection. And I think at some point a light bulb went on and said, you know what, Siyan, you got to go get help. And so my journey started with that light bulb. And that was the first time I decided that, okay, I need counseling. So
Good.
that was somewhere after October 2008, going into 2009 is
Yeah.
when I started counseling at that time. My first round of counseling at the time.
So did the rest of your family go into counseling as well?
No, no. So I was the first and I was the only.
Okay.
Since then, others have gone to counseling, but it took them much longer to get to that point than it did me.
Yeah. So, Siyan, at what point did you decide that maybe during your grieving period, or maybe it was during recovery? I'm not sure. You can let me know. At what point, though, did you decide to be a voice in terms of educating and making people aware of domestic violence?
Yeah. So interesting enough, that part started, I think, right away, and not only just for me, but for the family, for us as a family. I think right after the year after, in 2007, as a family, we decided we were going to do a fundraiser, and we were going to donate the funds from this cookout that we had, this big cookout we had in honor of our mother. We donated those funds to an organization in New Brunswick called Women Aware, who runs a women's shelter and other services, a hotline, and legal advocacy. A lot of different services they run throughout Middlesex County, and we that was our first kind of entry into becoming a voice in the fight against domestic violence. We knew right away, after the kind of the dust has settled, and we knew right away that we wanted to, not so much change the world. We knew right away we wanted to be a voice so that no other family would have to go through what we went through. We kind of knew that right away. We knew when he did what he did to our mother, we
Yes.
knew that it wasn't just to hurt her. He was trying to hurt everybody. He was trying to destroy us as a family to our core. And we were determined, as a family, we were determined that that wasn't going to happen. We all had to go through what we had to go through and our struggles, but we knew we stuck together. We knew that as a family, we couldn't let him win on that front,
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yes.
And so, like I said, that wanting to be a voice and trying to do something was like immediately.
Yes. So tell us how you decided to come about with so you did the fundraiser, that was shortly after your mom's death, but then you decided to create a foundation. Tell us about that.
Yeah, so the foundation itself, that didn't come about until years after, about 2018. So in between 2007 and 2018, we kind of stayed in touch with different organizations and did some small things. I did a couple candlelight rituals in between there.
Mhm.
Around somewhere around 2018, part of my healing journey and also our healing journey. When I say ours, I mean mine's and my wife healing journey was to start to become a lot more active within our church. We had made that conscious decision, didn't know what that looked like at the time. So we decided that, we wanted to just not go to church. We
Yes.
wanted to get active. And so part of that was us attending what at the time was called Talk Back Tuesday with Bishop Hilliard. He would host Tuesday nights, young adults at the time. And so we came out to one or two of the Talk Back Tuesday nights. And then I think the second time we came out, we were all sitting around in a round table discussing, and Bishop had, he knew my story, knew my family.
Yes.
So he had asked me to share with the group. And so I shared my story and I told my story. And then at the end of that, Bishop Hilliard looked at me and said, "You're going to start a foundation in your mother's honor." And at the time, I'm just sitting there like, okay, I never thought that a foundation never was a thought. I didn't, even in all the work that we did, or that I did leading up to 2018, I never thought about a foundation. I never thought about creating something that would cement her legacy, well past any of us. And so when he said that, it was kind of like, oh, okay. And so part of the healing journey and finding a new norm was to accept certain things like that. So I said to myself, I said, you know what, I'm not going to fight it. I want to see what this is about.
Yes.
And so it started just like that, really organically in a round circle with about maybe 30 young adults and sharing, and then Bishop telling me, "You're going to start this foundation." And then from there, it was like, okay, well, I want you to go and meet with Pastor Reed, the cathedral counselor. We meet with Pastor Reed and sit down and talk about what we just talked about. And so I did that. I set up a call and we met, me, Nicole, Pastor Reed, we met at the, I can't remember. I think we met at the flat. Yeah, one at the council center, but we met, we sat down in her office and we took out a chalkboard and started writing ideas down and thoughts. And she challenged my thoughts and what I really wanted to do and sent us home with some homework. And the next time we met, I came back with a business plan, a mission statement, a vision statement, and something kind of set off. It was like new life.
Yes.
Just talking about it and talking about what it could be and what it could look like was like new life to me. It kind of felt like that this was the beginning of my new norm. And so I really held on to that and ran with it. And the foundation, from we set out, we determined we were going to do a launch party and we did it and it took off.
Yes. So I want to share, you sent me some information and I have here your commitment, the commitment.
Yeah.
It says here, our hope is to bring an end to domestic violence. This foundation will work with the local community leaders, churches, and even organizations to bring that goal to fruition. We believe that strength, compassion, love, and education are relationship changing, life-saving keys.
Yeah. And that came about, that commitment and our mission statement and our vision statement came about just us sitting down together and really understanding what we wanted to do with this foundation. When we wanted, Pastor Reed challenged me about where I wanted to go with the foundation, I made a conscious decision that I didn't want the foundation to focus on adults.
Yes.
I made that decision because I felt like if we were really going to change the world and really end this fight against domestic violence, it would have to start a lot earlier than adults. I knew there was a whole lot of great organizations doing a lot of work with victims and survivors and even in batters. There's a lot of organizations. There's not enough focusing on before it becomes a problem. The kids.
So let me ask you, what is the youngest age group you have worked with so far?
So I've had the privilege, the honor, and the challenge. The youngest, I think, the kids were 5 to 7. So I got
And why speaking to them? Why is it important to speak to children that young?
yeah, because the just to go back just a little bit, what our foundation focuses on is healthy relationships. And so when you just look at just healthy relationships, you think about it, we're all, no matter what age you're at, you know, from 5 to 60 or whatever, we're all in some sort of relationship with somebody. And so talking to 5-year-olds, you think you know, we kind of dismiss them, but it's important for them to understand, like, look, you're in a relationship with your friends over here. You're in a relationship with your teachers and your parents. And so to come down to their level and connect with them on their level, and educate them on what a healthy relationship is supposed to look like will help them. So when somebody toxic comes into their lives, these kids, you know, they're smart enough at that age to understand what you're saying to them, and they know, okay, this is not a good person, and I shouldn't be around this good person. So I think it's important, you know, to start really that young. I really do. There's a way to talk to kids that young, and then different stages of their lives where they get it, you know.
Yes. So I'm wondering if does bullying come up when you're talking? Because as you're mentioning the younger kids, the bullying I'm thinking can be a form of domestic violence.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely, because a lot of the bullying happens within their friend circles, you know, which ties into the whole domestic violence piece, because, you know, domestic violence is an act of violence against somebody who has close connections to you. And so, yeah, a lot of this bullying happens within their friend circles. You know, they don't realize it's not domestic violence to them, but yeah, I mean, we have material and pieces and talk about that also, you know.
I want to share, you have your foundation logo. Talk to us about this and how did you come up with this and what does it mean?
Yeah, so the Rene J. Bradley Foundation logo, that was also an interesting story. We, and I keep saying we, but and when I'm referring to my wife Nicole, who is absolutely my partner in this.
Yes.
She's a background type of individual, and so she's my moral compass and she's really running the foundation, but
okay.
I may be the face, but she's the brains behind it. And so when we started talking about what a logo wanted to look like, and we worked with one of her close friends to design this logo, we didn't want it to automatically scream domestic violence. We, you know, there's the purple and all of that you know, you can use, and it says domestic violence right away. We wanted it to be more of a freeing, you know, sign. So red was my mother's favorite color, so that's where the red came about. And then it's just about being free, you know, the dove and the flower. That it just kind of brought everything together in the house, you know. My mother was big on family and bringing everybody together, so it kind of just incorporated a lot of different, you know, between her color and the family and the dove and the flower, and it's just all symbolizes just being free and love and happiness. So that's what it's about. Even though we're dealing with a very heavy topic,
yes,
and oftentimes a very sad topic, you know, I always say that there is love, there's joy, and there's some pain in and happiness in everything that we go through. And so that's how the logo came about.
Yes, I want to. So here's something you shared as well. So there's Miss Nicole here in this group. So was this your first function, or what was this?
Yeah, this was the launch event. So this was the first fundraiser we did. So we since 2018 we've been giving out scholarships to Perth Amboy High School seniors. And so we've been doing fundraisers. Unfortunately, COVID has kind of slowed that down, but this was the first fundraiser and the first launch that in 2018, and we were able to put on this event and raise enough money to give two students at Perth Amboy High School $1,000 each for college. And so since 2018, we've tried to maintain that scholarship in my mother's name.
Awesome. So there are some other things you're doing in the community and with other kids. What are some of the things you're doing, your foundation?
Yeah, so what's wonderful is through the foundation, I've been able to connect with some wonderful organizations and some wonderful people throughout the state of New Jersey and really do some, larger work. Just myself would not be able to reach the amount of people and make a change like I really want to. And so I believe in order to do that, you need partners. So I've been fortunate enough now currently, I sit on the board of directors of the organization that I mentioned earlier on, Women Aware. I'm a board director there. And through Women Aware, we're currently now venturing off into what I think is a really exciting thing, and it's a mentoring program called Camp Hope. And so what that is it's a mentoring program called Camp Hope, but it's more of a mentoring program. That's why I said it that way. So it's a year-long program where we deal with kids that's been affected by domestic violence, and we take them on into this year-long program, and we do events with them all year long, all centered around hope and building their self-esteem up. And then in the summer, the program caps off with a week of camp away, where obviously it's away camp, so they do a lot of fun events. A lot of all the different camp events, but everything they do is centered around hope. So we deal with kids that have had hope torn from them because somebody's either abused them or they watched their parent be abused. And so they've lost hope in life. And so the program is really just geared towards instilling hope back into these kids and letting these kids know, just like what we're talking about, just because you're going through something traumatic and something that may seem like life is over and there's no way back, that there is still hope in that. And so that's exciting for me, So right now we are planning for 2023 to be the first year we start bringing on kids in January of 2023. And then that summer, we should have our first Camp Hope. Another initiative in Middlesex County is the Family Justice Center, which is another great initiative that I have the privilege of working with and sitting and co-chairing that initiative. And that's where it's kind of a one-stop shop for survivors. So if you are somebody who needs shelter, legal aid, housing aid, whatever you may think of from a survivor who's running and their kids they may need, instead of having to go all over the state of New Jersey to find all of these different services, instead of having to go down to the courthouse to get a restraining order, you come to this one place and you sit in this one very nice place that's geared towards survivors and making you feel comfortable, and all the different services, all the different people come to you.
And where is this located?
So right now we have an office in downtown New Brunswick on, forgive me, I can't remember the address, but it's downtown New Brunswick, Middlesex County Family Justice Center.
And if anyone
across the street from the prosecute office. Okay,
and if anyone wants to get in touch, then they can certainly reach out to you.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yes. So what is your contact information? How can people reach you? How can people support the foundation?
Yeah, so you can go to the website. The website is the Rene J. Bradley Foundation.org. www.renejbradleyfoundation.org. You can go there. All of my contact information is on there. You can send us an email at renejbradleyfoundation@gmail.com to contact me there. And so,
well, thank you so much. One other question. I'm guessing that, or I should ask, in the foundation, do you give the young people, the 5-year-olds, the high school students, etc., tips and ideas how they can identify domestic violence? Because sometimes if people have been in domestic violence situations, they might not recognize it.
Yep. Yep, that's exactly what we do. So we have a whole curriculum that was provided to us from Women Aware, who got this curriculum from the New Jersey Coalition to End Domestic Violence. So it's a whole curriculum around healthy relationships. And so within there, it gives you all the signs of unhealthy relationships and all the signs of healthy relationships. And so we go through that in fun, interactive ways. We play games around that. But yeah, the whole goal behind it and the conversations is to leave them with just that, tools to understand the signs, to see, okay, when something, what we call green, yellow, and red lights. So when you see these different signs, and these green healthy signs, is these warning signs, yelling signs, or these yelling red signs that you're dealing with a toxic situation. So ultimately, that's our goal, to leave the kids with those skills.
That's wonderful. So give us again your contact information so that people can reach you, reach the foundation.
Yep. So once again, the website is www.renejbradleyfoundation.org. And the email is renejbradleyfoundation@gmail.com.
Siyan, thank you so much for giving us this wonderful information. Thank you very much. And thank you for listening and watching and being with me on Leafless, Not Lifeless. Thank you so much. And listen, I'd like to hear from you. If you have a story to tell, maybe at some point you felt like you were leafless, but you realized how you were growing and you really grew and became beneficial, not just to yourself, but to others as well. So send me an email, leaflessnotlifeless@gmail.com, and join me the next time for the next episode of Leafless, Not Lifeless. I'm Sharon Benjamin. Thank you again for joining. Siyan, thank you so much. And for the listeners and viewers, thank you so much for listening and watching. Please get in touch, leaflessnotlifeless@gmail.com. See you next time on the next episode of Leafless, Not Lifeless.